Hello everyone, and welcome to a new series that I would tentatively like to call Rate That Country. It is pretty self-explanatory, the name I mean, but there are some things I want to differentiate it from. So I've seen a lot of, and I've watched them, and I've enjoyed them. People have made top 10 nations to play as in EU4, top 10 starts, for example, or top 10 most difficult starts, or other kind of listicles like that. People have also made, I've also seen kind of top 10, or not top 10, but like empire reviews, or specific country reviews for empires, such as the Inca Empire, or the Roman Empire, or the Byzantine Empire, or whatnot. And I want this to be, first of all, less discriminatory, so it can be about anything, not just have to be an empire, and also want it to be more focused than a top 10 list. This is just going to be about one specific country each video, or in this video's case, a collection of countries. This video is going to be about the Jurchen Tribes, or the Manchurian tribes, or Manchurian countries, or whatever you want to call them. There are three of them. There's Yiren, there's Haishi, and there's Jianzhou. Yiren and Haishi both start out with around 60 to 65 development. Jianzhou starts out with nearly 100, and that would make you think that Jianzhou was the easiest start, but I've always found that Yiren is actually the easiest, partially because it's farther away from Korea and Ming, and it allows you to kind of take a little time before you get to bordering these guys. Whereas Haishi and Jianzhou, more often I've found have to rival Korea or get in more trouble because they're next to Ming. And I have formed Qing on Iron Man mode. That was like kind of one of my goals for EU, and I accomplished it relatively recently, as Yiren, and it was a lot of fun. It was very challenging, but it was fun, and there are some problems that I had with it, but also some things that I really liked about it. And so this video series, this video is going to be about Yiren, or the Jurchen Tribes, but future ones will be about anything else. And I want to keep them pretty concise, but I want to, so maybe under like 5 minutes, except for maybe this video, since I'm kind of introducing the series idea. But there are 4 main categories that I want to start, or that I want to talk about in this kind of review of each country that I do. The first is quality of the start. The second is the quality of their kind of uniqueness, I guess, like their ideas. The Jurchens have their own Manchu ideas, which I think are very interesting, and they've actually been changed a little bit with the Mandate of Heaven expansion. So that's, second is quality ideas. Third is quality of playability overall, and then fourth is role playing. And this is kind of general, and also potentially has a chance of getting into kind of controversial political stuff. Like I could say, like, Uzbek is really fun because it's like, I love Uzbekistan and I love the history of Uzbekistan, and so role playing as it is a lot of fun. But then, like, playing as someone in India is not fun because I don't like the history of India or something. I'm not I'm not saying that because I actually do or do not like these things. I'm just using it as an example. But that's not really what I mean when I say role playing. It's more, I guess, more about like formation. So 1444 is that was almost 600 years ago, and it's very fun to kind of form things from this start that didn't exist then but exist now, like or existed at some point. For example, Manchuria into Qing, that happens, but that happened in real life, but it doesn't always happen in this game. So that's kind of like a role-playing thing. Or I guess in the reverse of it would be, this game starts post-Mongolian conquest, post kind of breakup of the Mongol Empire, particularly in China, where the Mongolian dynasty was called the Yuan. But you can start as a Mongolian horde. I think, yeah, Chagatai, Yarkand, or Oirat, Mongolia are all good for it, I think. And you can reform the Great Yuan. So that's another role-playing thing. Other things, I don't know. I mean, like playing, for example, as Austria against the Ottomans, that can be fun because you're kind of role-playing in real life a country that had a very significant role in warding off the Ottomans from from Europe and got very close to allowing them in. So those are just some examples of role-playing. So anyway, those are the 4 categories. Quality of start, ideas and kind of unique features. I guess ideas and events would go together. Quality of playability overall, and role-playing and formation. So in terms of quality of start, the Jurchen Tribes, whether you're playing as Jeonju, Haishi, or Yeren, do not have a good start. They are in Girin, the Girin trade node, which is terrible. So terrible, in fact, that you basically just want to delete all of your trade ships. You only start out with 2. But yeah, you want to delete them since it's cost more to upkeep them, at least last time I checked, than you actually get money from protecting trade in that node. Otherwise, the provinces are very low development. Our capital is 6. Yeah, so they suck. And on top of being bad, they are very proximate to the strongest nation at the beginning of the game. I mean, you can compare the Ottomans and the Ming to see which one is stronger, but I mean, the Ming starts off with a larger force limit and all the benefits they get from being Empire of China. So at least in the immediate run, the Ming is stronger, and that's really crippling since you're not a one province minor, but you kind of have you like very nearly have the functionality of a one province minor. Like you might as well be. But I guess that's not the only problem with the Jurchen start. There aren't really that many directions you can go. You basically have to go south. Like, it's China there. You can go west if you want, into the hordes over here if you want to avoid China, which is possible, but all of these provinces, there are just so few well-developed provinces around here. You're just going to end up kind of stretching yourself very thin. And otherwise, you can go north with exploration ideas or expansion ideas or something, but there's so many other good ideas that you basically need to take as the Jurchen Tribes in order to survive, given your certain mechanics like Horde Unity or just general kind of desperation for expansion. Because you can't just sit around and spend all your resources colonizing. You have so little money. Also, you encounter a lot of religions along the way, so religious ideas are important, so you can't really afford to be colonizing. I mean, you could always go down that route, but it's just not that great. Yeren, I think, starts out with syncretism, but Haishi and Jeonju, as far as I can remember, don't. But just because their start is bad doesn't mean it's not fun, and those are 2 things that I'm going to have to kind of work on differentiating. So there's going to be a number for quality, a rating for quality, and there's going to be a rating for enjoyability. Try to make this as simple as possible. But for quality, in terms of just practical quality of the start of the Jurchen Tribes, I'd give it a 3. It's no Manipur, which is still here as far as I know, right? Yeah, right there. But of course, it's also no Ming or even Oirat or Korea or something. I mean, like, Korea starts off pretty well. It's pretty easy to start off doing well in Korea if you play as Korea, because you can just go up north here. But these guys don't really... it's just so difficult to kind of stay on your feet, let alone get going. And there are directions you can go, but it's very difficult. So I'm gonna put the quality of the start as a 3. I mean, I'd put, like, just for a frame of reference, I'd give the Ottomans like a 9 or a 10. But in terms of enjoyability, I would say I would put it at, I'm going to say 8, because these guys are a huge amount of fun to play. Despite their kind of monodirectionality, the very few ways you can go, they start off, they just, the hordes have all sorts of advantages for expanding, working out the diplomatic situation. Even just with these kind of 5 or 6 entities around here is a lot of fun, because it changes it's different every game. Now, in terms of their events and ideas, which is the second category, Manchu or the Jurchen Tribes are pretty well endowed. Their ideas are quite good for the most part. Land maintenance modifier minus 10% is good, particularly given the lack of money that you have. The 2 land leader shocks are fantastic, or not fantastic, but they're good. United 3 Jurchens is incredible. You don't even need to have United the 3 Jurchens in order to get this, which is kind of weird. But I guess you'd probably want to have done that by the time you get this, because that takes, a few decades to get your first national idea, and you do want to unite the Jurchens very quickly. So that's fantastic. National manpower modifier plus 10%, core creation cost minus 10% or minus 20%. They got some other good things. Technology cost minus 10% is fantastic for them because they're so far away from institution start points and you just get it so slowly. Other things, national unrest -2, manpower recovery speed is pretty good. Stability cost modifier, not that important, but yeah, they have very good ideas. Now, if I can remember, they added for Mandate. I have not played these guys in Mandate of Heaven. They added lots of new events, and I don't know exactly what they are, but I remember the events for Manchu being relatively lackluster. I mean, it's no England, it's no France, it's they don't, just most people in Asia don't get that many interesting events, and I know the Mandate of Heaven has changed that, but for the most part, it's not, other than their whole banner system, which I think has some interestingness to it. It's not that well developed. I mean, it has gotten better, but I think I'd give their ideas and events, they're kind of unique, the things that are unique about them, I think I'd give it a 6, because they do have unique stuff, and it is like very unique to them, and it's all about them and their history, and they do have some events, and they do have some of their whole banner mechanics that are unique to them as well. It's not like, this is not the center of the world to Europa Universalis, unlike Europe, so you're not going to be getting an interesting event every 5 years. But you do have some stuff to go with, so we're going to say 6 for that. Now, in terms of playability overall, this is kind of where these guys fall a little short. And you may not agree with me. You most certainly do not have to. This is not supposed to be objective. This is just from my point of view. I absolutely hate the Horde Unity mechanic. I relish stability. I relish kind of permanence to my countries. And I don't like feeling like I always have to be doing something or my country is just going to fall into shambles. You start off, and if you don't know what Horde Unity is, I'm not going to explain it in depth in this video, but it's your legitimacy, except it is always falling unless you raise provinces, which means reducing their development. Recently, they added the mechanic where you can spend 100 military power to raise this up a little bit, maybe by 10. Is it? Yeah, I think it's 10. But it's just not fun to me. It always feels like, it basically feels like you can reform your government, but that requires you to take some pretty bad idea groups, doesn't it? Yeah, it requires you to have completed either econ, innovative, or administrative ideas, which takes a long time. I mean, the easiest way maybe to avoid this is to form Qing, but of course that's a huge hassle. And it makes it feel even more linear, because I mean, I just kind of felt like I have to form Qing. I mean, I wanted to form Qing, luckily, but if I didn't, playing as these guys would have still made me feel like I have to do it, because I just can't, I don't want to like maintain this, have to worry about this mechanic for all nearly 400 years of this game. And it's very frustrating. I mean, you have to, so the way province raising works is that you raise your province, or you raise a province that is uncored, and it loses development. So that means that, like, in order to survive, you have to like destroy yourself, basically. And I appreciate that there's some historical relevance to this, maybe, but I absolutely despise this, and I do not find it fun to play as. And I'm going to say that this is the kind of problem with these countries. I don't actually find them particularly fun to play as in their own right. Like, if you could just form Manchu and then stop there, I would not probably ever touch these guys, except for maybe just for the hell of it once, just to see what it was like to have Horde Unity. So that brings us into our final category, which is directly related to the previous one, and that is role playability and formation. And that is Qing, or the Jurchen Tribes are fun to play because you can form so many things, because you can go into Manchuria, which is very different from individual these guys, I mean, in terms of like color and name and whatnot, and then you form Qing from that, which is also, I mean, that gives you the Emperor of China benefits, changes your color, gives you a crap load of new events, and everything that comes with being China. These guys would not be fun to play if you could not form Qing. I already said that. But it's the formation of Qing, the kind of role playing of that that event, that process, whatever you want to call it, that really makes these guys, I guess, pushes them over the line, because I actually really do like these guys. I mean, the Jurchen Tribes are one of my favorite countries or country groups in the game, specifically because you can form Qing. I mean, it's just such a huge jump from them being kind of not interesting to just the like utter historical relevance, and also the massive change that comes when you do form Qing. So in terms of playability, I would give them, I guess, a 4.5. But in terms of role-playing and formation, I would probably give them a 9. I don't want to say 10, because that the role-playing doesn't entirely make up for the frustration of the early game with these guys, but it is such a strong factor of their gameplay that it really it turns them from an incredibly, not from a gameplay perspective, not fun to play as country, into one of the most interesting historically to play as in this game, as far as I'm concerned. So that's just about it for episode 1 of Rate That Country for EU4. There are some things that I'm still kind of putting together in terms of how I'm going to format this. I mean, for this video, I've just been kind of wandering with my mouse around the area on the map of Manchuria. In the future, I might maybe make a time lapse of the focusing specifically. I mean, I'm not going to play a whole game as the country just to make a 10-minute video about it, but I might record a time lapse of just a spectated game and then have it focus on that area. Or I'm not really sure. There's still, of course, I've gone on talking a lot longer than I wanted to. I said 5 minutes, but I'll see how this works. So please, if you have any suggestions for this series or what you want to see next or anything, please let me know. As of course you've noticed, this is a great work in progress. This is by no means a finished product in terms of how I'm gonna organize this series, but I'm making this because I love this game, because I love history, and I love every individual entity in the game and how they interact with each other, as I've said before. And so I think it's really cool to just zoom in on one specific country or region or whatever, and just kind of analyze them from a gameplay perspective and the historical perspective and everything, and see how that relates to the world as a whole. So thank you very much for watching the Rate That Country of the Jurchen Tribes, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye-bye.